I've got so many questions, but first of all, congratulations, because the show is absolutely fantastic. You've done such a great job. How does it feel finally seeing it up on the screen?
Surreal, wild. I don't know how to articulate the experience. I mean, I'm a normal person from Sydney now on this incredible global show that's just all over the world. So I don't know what to do. It feels crazy.
That's bonkers. Did you watch Karate Kid growing up? Was this part of your DNA, or are you kind of a recent convert?
Embarrassingly, somehow the Karate Kid passed my household by. I don't know why, but my
Right.
brother hasn't seen it either. So we were sort of blissfully unaware. But I was shooting another show at the time called Minx in Los Angeles, and I
Hmm.
booked the show. And on the plane ride over, it was so hectic. The timing was so fast. I started binging it on my iPad on the plane ride over, so that I could get a sense of what it was and what it was going to be like.
Did it feel weird kind of knowing that you were going to come in as one of the bad guys? Was that sort
No, I love
of...
that. I love that. I really, really loved my audition scenes, and I knew instantly that it was like a special character. It felt very super villainy, and
Mm.
I loved that her origins were mysterious, and I obviously being Korean relate hugely to her. So I was very excited about it, but it definitely feels it feels unusual to step into an established show. I mean, they're in their fifth season, and I come in halfway through, and I also come in from Korea, so I'm not, part of the world in the valley. So I think not knowing a lot of the backstory as well, like not knowing the universe as well as say like a really avid fan, it
Mm.
actually helped me as well because I was so removed from the existing world.
That's a good point, because Sensei Kim's not been keeping up on all the goings on in the valley. She's come here to do a job, right?
She doesn't care. She's these petty little fights. She's like, nope, don't have time for that.
And then she steps on a plane like a character from Kill Bill with her kind of henchman. It's so cool to have a new player on the scene. But is there more to her? Because she is a bad guy, but there is a hint of backstory there. How much of a backstory did they give you going in?
I think there's definitely more there. I think in episode 7, we have this really beautiful flashback of when she's a child and she's
Mm.
watching John Kreese and Terry Silver train with her grandfather, Kim Sun-young, who is the origin of Cobra Kai through
Mm.
his style of Tang Soo. And what moved me so much when I saw the pictures on tape, because I wasn't there on that day, I
Yeah.
noticed they had put the young actress Sarah Ann in a pink gi, and it really touched me because my character is so extreme and obviously has been through so much to become this sort of super villain, uh, you know, extreme character. And she only wears black, and even the hair is like, there's no hair movement. It's just all so controlled.
Mm.
But to see her as a child playing in this pink gi was very moving to me. So I think there's a lot more there, and one can only imagine what she went through to become this sort of twisted, dark version of herself. The creators gave me a lot of backstory. On my first day, my first scene was coming out of the private jet. So really, I was like, what is life? Suddenly, I'm like in this. I've never been on a private jet in my life.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm sitting there with this giant braid in his heels and it's pouring outside. And I'm like, I have henchmen. One of them has an eye patch. And I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
But I'm coming out. And Josh Heald was on set that morning, my first scene. And he took me aside and he said, this is a really important character in the universe at which we're introducing. You're tied into this massive tradition of Cobra Kai with your grandfather, with your family, with the Korean martial art. And
Mm.
so it was impressed upon me how significant she was from day one.
So I have to ask, because we've not talked about Sydney yet, and I grew up in Sydney as well. I grew up over in the Northern Beaches. You were trained at the Australian Theatre for Young People. Did anything they teach you at all prepare you for this kind of acting role, or was it all very serious when you were studying?
I would say, my time at ATYP was like the most formative time for me in becoming an actor, because prior to that, I had never thought that I could do something like that. And the great thing about ATYP is that anybody can go. So I remember, it's not an audition school to get into. It really is open. And I remember I saved up money and I would go after school and I would catch the train by myself. And, I had a great teacher there, actually. Her name was Kate Gall. she's a fantastic theater director, I think, now in Sydney. And she was so impressive. And I actually was in class, I believe, Rebel Wilson. I remember being in class with her. It was such an encouraging environment. It's also how I got my first job and my first agent, because the head of the school at the time sent me to an audition, which I subsequently booked, and thus circumventing the old, how do you get an agent? You have to get a job first, you have to get a job to get an agent. And so I was sort of, you know, just speeding into it like that. So I'm very grateful to ATYP, and I have such fond memories of it. And I remember being down on the wharf, and I would sort of peek into the Sydney Theatre Company and be like, oh, maybe one day.
That's great. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so Sensei Kim is clearly where you've ended up from there. It's like a long road that you've gone along. I mean, why does she matter to you as a performer? Like, what is it about playing this role that really matters to you?
It's the most personal to me because it's the first time that I've played a Korean character.
Wow.
And not just any character, because she's treated with such care by the creators, John, Josh, and Hayden. I felt really supported, and to be able to be the first female sensei in this universe that is so beloved and well known, and to represent women and Asian women and my heritage, and it's layered in meaning for me. I feel so fortunate and lucky. You know, booking a job is always a miracle, and to book a job that is existing in a universe like this is like winning the lottery.
Because I'm always curious as to when you play a character who has a specific skill set and they train you, and then the shooting stops, have you kept up your training after the shoot's finished, or have you totally just let it go?
No, I am so into it, Paul.
Really?
When I booked the role, I went to a taekwondo dojang near my place, and I said to the Master Kwan, I said, teach me everything you know in 1 hour. I'm leaving for Atlanta to play this character. And he was like, let's do it. And so he just jammed all of his like lifetime of taekwondo knowledge into 1 hour for me. I don't know what I picked up in that in that hour, but it did give me some reassurance walking onto set. And then the training is just the most fun part of it. It's like playtime at school. You know, I was 1 hour off the plane, straight into the stunt gym, learning choreo with Peyton and Una, and straight away getting into it. Since we've wrapped, I've actually been attending that dojang regularly, the taekwondo dojang, and Master Kwan is my regular teacher now. And so, you know, I was able to take some of the stunt things that I learned on set and try to work them into like regular training. You know, you never know when one will continue this role.
That's so cool. Yeah, because now there's this sort of, there is a hole in the management over at Cobra Kai, and I mean, yeah, of course, spoilers, but like, are you hoping that your character returns? Because I spoke with the bad boy of karate, Mike Barnes, and I was like, they're going to need another teacher. And he said, well, maybe. And everyone's just saying, well, maybe. But I mean, is there more on the horizon for your
Well, maybe.
Oh, damn it.
Well, maybe. Look, I sincerely hope so. You know, we're all ready to go, and you know, I'm staying in tip-top shape and training all the way through. So I certainly would hope that we continue Kim Da-Eun's story. That's all I've got. Well, maybe that's it. I'm with Mike Barnes. Well, maybe
that's fine. I could just see like a laser sight appearing in your forehead from the lawyers who are just sitting on an opposite building. Yeah. So is there any hint of redemption? Because one of the best things about Cobra Kai is it literally says the way you are taught growing up and the way you are raised can turn you into a good or a bad person, and it's up to you to sort of seize control of that. I mean, Johnny showed that this season especially. Do you think there's any hint of redemption? Is the child in the small pink gi still in there somewhere for Sensei Kim?
Absolutely. I think there's always a sense of a hope for redemption for all the characters. That's what makes Cobra Kai so universal and so like such a touchstone for so many people. Like that's such a human thing. Like we all make mistakes and we can all choose the wrong path, and the possibility of redemption and finding that and achieving that is just, you know, the hope of mankind, you know. So yeah, I would think I would love to explore Kim Da-Eun's story in that way. We we had a lot of discussions about how this season, she was very tightly wound. You never saw her with her hair out. You never saw her in a private moment. She was always, you know, fronting and presenting in a very controlled manner. I think that this one flashback of when she was a child is really significant into how she got to who she is today. And I think, you know, obviously if we're lucky enough to have another season, that would be great to explore.
Don't say if, don't tease. I mean, it literally ends with Kreese faking his death and breaking out of prison Hannibal Lecter style. This season has everything. It's so good. Is there anything else you want to kind of, you want people to know about filming? Is there anything specific that happened that you want to get out there? And is there anything you want to say to Australian fans of the show who are super stoked to have a Sydney-sider in Cobra Kai?
I'm beaming on that last point. The one thing that I would want fans of Cobra Kai to know, I wish every fan could come and spend a day on set, because this is the warmest set I've ever worked on. It's very rare that every single person on the set is so incredibly, you know, friendly and welcoming, especially to me who came halfway through a season. You know, I really instantly felt part of it. And so for that, I think the Cobra Kai fans can rest assured that the show that they're standing is so worthy of that admiration, because they really mean well and they're good people. So I think that's like the one thing I would want to tell a Cobra Kai fan. The second thing is, I mean, to Australian people, I'm just blown away that I'm on this show, and you know, representing Australians is huge for me. I am the only Australian cast member. We do have a fantastic Australian stuntman on the show, Tom, and we were standing there side by side in one scene. And at one point he looked at me and he said, "Look at us two Aussies. What are we doing here?" And we sort of high-fived it out. So that's cool. I hope Australians love this season. They'll love it for you know, all the insane adventures and roller coasters that they've been invested in for 5 years. For me personally, just hello, and I hope you like it. And I feel really lucky to represent.